The first thing I remember after the crash was a nurse telling me I didn't have a wife. I was lying under fluorescent lights with a headache that felt like someone had replaced part of my skull with a bass drum. My left shoulder was strapped, my wrist was bruised purple, and a monitor beside me made soft electronic complaints every few seconds. I looked at the nurse and said, "Then where's Camille?" She checked the tablet in her hand. "Camille Rourke?" "Yes. My wife." The nurse hesitated. That hesitation scared me more than the hospital. "Mr. Barrett, Ms. Rourke is your emergency contact. She's on her way. But your chart lists you as unmarried." "That's wrong." "I'm not saying you're wrong about recognizing her. I'm telling you what your records say." Before I could argue, the door opened. Camille walked in wearing yesterday's clothes. I knew that immediately, even though I couldn't explain how. The cream blouse had a wrinkle near her waist she would normally never tolerate, her dark hair was pulled into a rough knot instead of the precise twist she wore at Copperline Audio, and she had one gold hoop earring missing. Camille Rourke was 36 years old, CEO of the company where I designed acoustic hardware, and so controlled that people lowered their voices when she entered prototype reviews. The woman standing in my hospital room looked like she hadn't breathed properly in hours. "There you are," I said. Her face changed. Not much. Camille didn't have big expressions. But I knew her well enough to see the relief hit first, followed by something painful. I reached toward her with my good hand. "Come here, wife." The nurse became intensely interested in the monitor. Camille stopped beside the bed. "Cole." "What? I'm not your wife." I smiled because clearly this was some kind of bad post-crash joke. She didn't smile back. "You're serious?" "Yes." I searched my own memory. Camille making coffee in my kitchen. Camille asleep on my shoulder while some terrible documentary played. Her shoes under my entryway bench. Her hands sliding into mine under a restaurant table because two Copperline employees had walked in unexpectedly. I knew the smell of her shampoo. I knew she counted 4 beats against her thumb when she was anxious. I knew she hated recorded music after midnight and refused to explain why. How could I know all of that and not know whether we were married? A neurologist came in 20 minutes later and answered part of the question. My car had spun on rain-slick pavement the previous evening and hit a divider. No major brain bleed. No surgery. I had a concussion, a shoulder sprain, and what he called patchy retrograde amnesia. "How patchy?" I asked. He asked me a series of questions. The president. The year. My address. My job. My sister's birthday. Fine. Then he asked what I had done last weekend. Nothing. Last month? Pieces. When had Copperline launched the new C14 stage monitor? I thought February. It had been May. The neurologist explained that several recent weeks were scrambled, with older memories apparently intact. Memory could return gradually, suddenly, partially, or not at all. "Can I make decisions?" I asked. Camille's gaze shifted toward me. The doctor understood exactly why I was asking. "You're oriented, you understand where you are and what happened, and you're reasoning clearly. Memory loss doesn't automatically remove decision-making capacity. But I strongly recommend that you avoid major irreversible decisions while you're still recovering." I looked at Camille. She folded her arms. "Good. You heard him," she said. "I did." "Then rest. I have a question first." Her eyes narrowed. I had apparently learned, somewhere in the years I still remembered clearly, that this expression meant Camille expected trouble and intended to dislike it efficiently. "If you're not my wife," I said, "why did my brain decide you were?" She looked away. That bothered me. "Camille, we've been together 14 months. Privately, apparently. Very privately. Do I love you?" Her jaw tightened. "That is an unfair question to ask me when you don't remember the last 5 weeks. Do you?" "Yes." The answer came instantly. "So marry me." The nurse actually left. Camille stared at me. "No." "Why?" "You have a concussion." I asked a coherent question. "You just learned we aren't married 4 minutes ago." "Then tomorrow." "No. If the doctor clears me again tomorrow." "Cole, do you want to marry me?" That got her. Her fingers started moving against her palm. 1, 2, 3, 4. I remembered that rhythm perfectly. "Yes," she said. "Then if I'm still asking tomorrow, take me." The following morning I passed another cognitive evaluation, signed my own discharge paperwork, argued successfully with a physical therapist about whether I could button my shirt without help, and asked Camille the same question again. She stood beside the hospital bed holding my jacket. "You're sure?" "No," I said. "Apparently I'm missing 5 weeks. But I'm sure I know you." And I'm sure every time somebody says you aren't my wife, it sounds wrong. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them. Fine. 2 hours later, Camille Rourke took me to the Davidson County Clerk's office. She made me read every line of the marriage license myself. She made the clerk ask me twice whether I understood what I was signing. When the clerk asked Camille whether she was certain, she said, painfully, "We found a civil officiant 3 blocks away." Camille's chief of staff, Marisol Kent, arrived as witness wearing sneakers and the expression of someone who had canceled 3 executive meetings and had no intention of apologizing. At 11:26 on a Tuesday morning, I married the woman my damaged memory had already promoted. Outside, Camille touched the plain band we had bought from a jewelry counter near the clerk's office. "You realize," she said, "this is completely insane. You still did it." Her eyes lifted to mine. "You called me your wife. You are now." That finally made her smile. Then a dented white van pulled hard against the curb. The side door flew open. Jesse Boone, guitarist for the band I had toured with in my 20s, climbed out holding a black flight case. He took one look at my ring, then at Camille, then back at me. "Oh, you have got to be kidding." I frowned. "Jesse?" He set the flight case on the sidewalk and unzipped the front pocket. Inside was a laminated tour credential with my photograph on it. The Paper Saints, 6-week Southern Theater Tour. My name was printed beneath the band logo. Jesse looked at me like he couldn't decide whether to hug me or shake me. "Bus leaves in 8 days, man." Camille went completely still beside me. I looked at the credential again. "I'm going on tour?" Jesse's expression changed. "You don't remember?" "No. You said yes 3 weeks ago." The wedding ring suddenly felt heavier on my hand. Jesse looked toward Camille. "Does she know?" Her silence answered for her. He swore under his breath. Apparently, before losing 5 weeks of my life, I had agreed to spend 6 weeks on the road. And I hadn't told the woman I married the next morning. Camille drove me home in complete silence. That was worse than anger. Angry Camille spoke in perfectly constructed sentences and made other people regret verbs. Silent Camille tapped 4 beats against the steering wheel and stared straight ahead as if she could reduce the road to an equation. At the 7th red light, I said, "I didn't hide the tour from you today." "I know. I also didn't know it existed." "I know that too." "You sound furious." "I am attempting to determine who deserves it." "Me?" "Possibly several versions of you." That was fair. My townhouse in East Nashville looked familiar enough to make the missing pieces more unsettling. My mail sat in the same wooden tray. 2 pairs of Camille's shoes were under the bench. A half-finished pedalboard occupied my dining table. 3 guitars hung on the living room wall. Then I opened the spare bedroom. A 4th guitar was gone. On the floor where its case normally sat was a packing list. 6 weeks of clothing. String sets. Soldering kit. Stage in-ear backups. Medication. Laundry soap. I recognized my handwriting. Camille read the page over my shoulder. "You were packed." "Looks like it." "You really hadn't told me." There was no accusation in her voice now. That made it worse. I turned. Would I normally? Yes. The answer was immediate. "We've had private dinners for 14 months. You know where I keep spare batteries. You know I hate fennel. I have your garage code." Camille's eyes stayed on the packing list. "You do not normally vanish for 6 weeks without a conversation." The word vanish carried more weight than the rest. I remembered enough to know not to touch it yet. Instead, I called Jesse. He came over that evening with 2 pizzas, 3 folders, and all the patience of a man who had spent half his 20s waiting for drummers. The Paper Saints had been my band from 22 to 28. We had never become famous, but we had become successful enough to tour theaters, sell records, and spend years telling ourselves exhaustion was proof of momentum. I had left after our last tour. Not because I stopped loving music. Because I stopped loving who I became on the road. Copperline gave me somewhere else to put my ears. I started designing stage monitors and pickup systems instead of using them under lights. The tour Jesse showed me wasn't a comeback fantasy. It was 6 weeks, 14 theaters. The band's original singer was retiring from touring afterward, and they wanted one final run with the old lineup. "You said no the first 2 times I called," Jesse told me. "What changed?" He looked at Camille. She looked back at him with the temperature of an operating room. "I don't know," Jesse said carefully. "You called me 3 weeks ago and said you were in. Did I say why?" "You said, 'I'm tired of pretending wanting the stage means I have to want my old life back.' That sounded like me. More importantly, it sounded like something I needed to remember." Camille sat at the opposite end of the couch, arms folded. Was this approved at Copperline? Jesse handed me another page. My unpaid leave had been approved by Felix Ward, Copperline's chief product officer, 20 days before the crash. No special treatment from Camille. In fact, the form listed her as not involved. She stared at that line. So everyone knew except me. Felix knew, I said. And Jesse. Yes. And presumably your band. That's traditionally how tours work. Her eyes cut toward me. Sorry. Jesse took that as his cue to leave. Before he did, he pointed at the flight case by the door. Rehearsal tomorrow. You don't have to play if your head isn't right. Come listen. After the door closed, Camille stood near my kitchen island. I asked, were we fighting before the crash? She didn't answer immediately. That was enough. About the tour? I don't know. You don't know? You didn't tell me there was a tour. Then what were we fighting about? Her fingers began tapping. 1, 2, 3, 4. You wanted me to go somewhere with you, she said. Where? You wouldn't tell me until I agreed. That sounds irritating. It was. Did you agree? No. Why? Camille looked toward the guitars on my wall. I knew it involved music. The room changed. I remembered one thing clearly about her childhood. Her father, Patrick Rourke, had been a touring guitarist. Brilliant. Unreliable. Famous enough locally that strangers still told Camille stories about him as if they knew a version she didn't. He missed birthdays, graduations, one hospitalization, and most of the last year of his marriage. When he was gone, he mailed cassette recordings home. Camille never listened to recorded music after midnight because that was when her mother used to play his tapes. What did you think I wanted? I asked. To take me to a show. Would that be so bad? Her expression hardened. For you? No. For you? She didn't answer. I could have pushed. Instead, I picked up the tour folder. Rehearsal tomorrow. Camille stared at me. You're considering going. I apparently already considered it. You're injured. My shoulder will heal. You don't remember agreeing. No. But I know the man who wrote that packing list is still me. Her eyes flashed. And what if the man who married me this morning wants something different? That stopped me. I looked at the ring. Then at her. I don't know yet. Camille flinched almost invisibly. I hated causing it. I hated more that lying would have been easier. I'm not canceling the tour because we got married, I said. And I'm not going because a version of me I can't remember signed a form. I'm going to rehearsal. I'm going to find out why I said yes. Camille's jaw tightened. Then she nodded. That is fair. I started toward the spare room. Cole. I turned. She stood beside the kitchen island, ice-cold CEO posture wrapped around something much more fragile. If you go, she said, I will not use Copperline to change the route, sponsor the band, move dates, or give myself a reason to be in every city. I hadn't asked. The fact that she said it anyway mattered. Thank you. She looked down at my wedding band. Do not thank me yet. The first song came back through my hands before it came back through my memory. Jesse counted us in at 10 the next morning. 1, 2, 3, 4. My left hand found the opening chord without hesitation. My right hand missed the second change, recovered on the fourth beat, and by the chorus my body had remembered something my conscious mind hadn't caught up with yet. The rehearsal room was an old converted print shop south of downtown, full of patched rugs, cheap lamps, instrument stands, and cables that multiplied whenever nobody looked directly at them. The paper saints sounded rough, then familiar, then good. Jesse grinned at me across his guitar. There he is. I laughed and immediately regretted it because my head still disliked sudden movement. Our singer, Wes Parham, called for a break. I sat on an amplifier case and flexed my shoulder. You okay? Jesse asked. Physically. And mentally? I know every chorus. That's good. I don't remember saying yes to the tour. That's less good. I looked at the room. There had been years when this was all I wanted. A guitar, a road, a set list, the clean certainty of 4 people landing on the same beat. I had forgotten how alive it felt. Camille had not come. I was relieved. And disappointed. Both could be true. At lunch, Jesse handed me an old notebook he said I had been using during rehearsals before the crash. I opened it carefully. Most pages were chords, equipment notes, and set changes. One page contained only 3 lines. Don't confuse touring with leaving. Don't ask Camille to pretend she isn't scared. Don't let her fear choose for me either. I read them twice. Jesse leaned against the wall. That help? Not enough. You two were rough the last week. What happened? I wasn't there. Did I say anything? You said you were done being somebody's secret. That line landed harder. Secret? Jesse shrugged. You've been dating the CEO of your company for over a year. I've met her twice. Pieces started lining up. Camille and I went to restaurants 40 minutes outside the city. She entered company events through one door and I through another. If she stayed at my place, her car went in the garage. I had always understood why. At least I thought I had. Copperline employees respected me because I could hear a 6 decibel resonance problem buried in a stage monitor before the analyzer confirmed it. I had built my career before Camille became CEO. She didn't want anyone saying I had been promoted because I slept with her. I didn't want that either. But somewhere along the way, privacy had stopped feeling protective and started feeling like erasure. After rehearsal, I drove to Copperline. My doctor had cleared short drives, and Camille had objected exactly once before, apparently remembering I was still an adult. The company occupied an old industrial building on the Cumberland River, all brick walls, acoustic labs, assembly floors, and one glass-fronted executive level Camille hated because she said glass made people perform transparency instead of practicing it. I found her in lab 2. She was listening to a prototype speaker. No music. Pink noise. Of course. Romantic, I said from the doorway. She turned. Her eyes immediately checked my shoulder, my face, and whether I was standing steadily. How was rehearsal? Good. That answer bothered her. I could see it. I held up the notebook. Jesse said we were fighting because I was tired of being your secret. Camille switched off the test signal. I wouldn't phrase it that way. How would you? You said secrecy had become a room I could leave whenever I wanted and you could not. That sounded exactly like the kind of sentence I would use when furious. Was I wrong? No. The answer surprised me. Camille walked to the workbench and began arranging 3 hex keys by size. Another stress habit. Then why didn't we change it? Because the first time we discussed going public, someone in finance joked that you had become very visible upstairs. I remembered that. Barely. A lunchroom comment. I had laughed it off. Camille had apparently carried it for months. I was trying to protect your work, she said, by making sure nobody knew you loved me. Her hand stopped. That is not what I intended. Intent and effect aren't twins. No. She looked exhausted. I stepped closer. Was the place I wanted you to go with me a concert? I don't know. You never said. Would you have gone? Her jaw set. No. That answer came too quickly. Why? You know why. I know your father toured. I know you hate old recordings. I know you count beats when you're scared. I do not know why one concert with me is impossible. Camille looked at the silent speaker between us. Then she said, because the last time I saw my father alive was backstage. I went still. He was leaving for another 6-week run, she continued. My mother told him if he got on the bus, she was done. He got on anyway. How old were you? 17. What happened? Heart attack in Memphis 3 weeks later. I had known how he died. I had never known the last conversation. Camille's fingers touched the edge of the bench. He never came home. Now the tour wasn't abstract. Neither was my wife's fear. I reached for her hand. She let me take it. I'm not him. I know. You don't sound like you know. Her eyes met mine. That is the problem. Memory came back during a song we had never released. It was called Southbound Again, and apparently I had written most of it 2 weeks before the crash. Jesse handed me the chart on Friday and said, "This was yours." I played the opening progression. Nothing. Then Wes sang the first verse. A hotel window. Headlights on wet pavement. Somebody promising not to make departure sound like betrayal. My hand stopped. The rehearsal room disappeared. I was back in Camille's kitchen 5 days before the crash. She stood barefoot near the sink, wearing one of my old Paper Saints shirts because it was the only piece of band merchandise she would admit to owning. I remembered saying, "I'm going." Not angrily. Terrified. Camille had stared at me for so long I thought she might ask me not to. Instead she said, "Then go." I remembered getting angry anyway. "That's it? What do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell me 6 weeks doesn't erase us. You're the one leaving. For a tour, Camille. Not a new life." Her face had gone cold because cold was what she did when fear got too close to the surface. My father said that sentence. I remembered the exact silence afterward. Then I remembered something else. I had crossed the kitchen and taken both her hands. "I am not asking you to love touring." She had looked away. "I'm asking you to stop treating every departure like practice for abandonment." That had hurt her. She pulled free. And then she said the thing I had forgotten. "I'm trying. Not no. Not stay. I'm trying. The memory shifted. Another night. 2 days later. My townhouse. I had shown her a small venue calendar on my phone. The opening night of the tour was at the Ryman. Nashville. Home. I want you there, I told her. Camille had started tapping 4 beats against her thumb. You know I don't do backstage. Then sit in the balcony. I don't do farewell shows. It isn't a farewell show. You keep saying that like the words can make it true. I remembered becoming angry again. Not because she wanted me to stay. Because she refused to witness me leave. I can't spend my life proving I'm not your father, I said. Camille went white. I regretted it immediately. Then the memory snapped forward to the night of the crash. Rain against my windshield. My guitar case in the trunk. A small paper bag on the passenger seat from a bakery Camille liked. I was driving to her condo. Not away from it. I knew why. I had made a decision. Not about the tour. About us. The rehearsal room came back around me. Jesse had stopped playing. Cole? I put the guitar down. I remember. Not everything. Enough. I drove to Camille's condo that evening. She opened the door before I knocked twice. One look at my face and she stepped aside. What happened? Southbound again. Her expression changed. You remembered the fight. Yes. She moved toward the living room, then stopped as if she wasn't sure which distance from me was safe anymore. I didn't make her guess. I wasn't leaving you. I know. No. I mean before the crash. I wasn't driving away. Her eyes locked onto mine. I was coming here. For what? To tell you I was going on tour and I was done hiding us. Camille said nothing. The silence stretched. I had decided that if we couldn't survive 6 weeks in public, I said, we weren't surviving anything. She lowered herself slowly onto the edge of the sofa. And then you crashed. Yeah. And woke up calling me wife. That part still seems efficient. She laughed once. It broke halfway through. I sat beside her. Not touching. Why did you marry me? Camille's head turned. You asked. That isn't enough. Her fingers tightened together. No. What was enough? She looked down at her ring. When you woke up, you didn't remember the worst month we had. You didn't remember the arguments, the tour, the secrecy, or the things we said badly. Her voice became quieter. But you saw me and called me wife like every wall I had built around us had disappeared. I let that sit between us. So you wanted the version of me without the fight. Camille flinched. Maybe for 1 hour. That honesty hurt more than a defense would have. Then she continued. But I took you to the clerk because you asked again after the doctor cleared you, and because I wanted the marriage more than I was afraid of what happened when you remembered. Are you still afraid? Yes. No hesitation. What do you think I'm going to do? She finally looked at me. Decide the man who remembered everything would never have married me that Tuesday. There it was. The real question beneath the ring. Not whether I remembered loving her. Whether memory would turn the wedding into a mistake. I took her left hand and looked at the cheap plain band we had bought because neither of us had planned a wedding 24 hours in advance. I was coming here to stop hiding you. That isn't the same as marriage. No. She waited. I didn't give her a comforting answer I hadn't earned yet. I need the rest of my memory, I said. Her face went still. And I need to go on that tour. The hand in mine tightened. Then relaxed. Okay. The word cost her. I heard it. The marriage stopped being private on Monday morning. Not because either of us announced it. Because marriage licenses are public records and Nashville has enough music industry reporters with too much time between album releases. At 8:14, a local entertainment newsletter posted, Copperline CEO Camille Rourke quietly marries acoustic designer Cole Barrett. By 8:31, somebody at Copperline had dropped the link into the company chat. By 8:45, Marisol was calling both of us with the calm tone of a woman who would eventually die from other people's choices. You have 2 options, she said over speakerphone in Camille's office. Confirm with 1 sentence or spend all day watching people invent 6. Camille looked at me. That was new too. Not deciding first. Asking with her eyes. Confirm it, I said. Marisol typed. What exactly? I thought about the hospital. The courthouse. The tour. The fight I had remembered. Say we got married last Tuesday, we're happy, and my professional reporting line hasn't changed. Camille added, and no interview requests. Marisol nodded. Obviously. The statement went out. The world did not end. People stared at me in hallways. Felix Ward slapped my shoulder and said, You married the CEO and somehow still filed your leave paperwork on time. Very on brand. One junior engineer asked whether I was coming back after tour. Yes. That answer surprised me with how certain it felt. I liked Copperline. I liked designing things musicians trusted under pressure. Wanting 6 weeks on stage did not mean I needed to burn down the life I had built off stage. At noon, Felix called me into the prototype lab. The new stage monitor I had helped design sat on the bench. You planning to take these on tour? He asked. I had been. Before the crash, apparently, I had arranged to test 2 units live during the run. Now that I was publicly married to Copperline CEO, the arrangement looked different. If they fail, I said, people will say I protected the company. If they work, people will say your wife handed you the best gear. Exactly. Felix leaned back against the bench. So I'm not taking them. He raised an eyebrow. That's 6 months of your work. I know. You're allowed to use the equipment you designed. I'm also allowed to decide I don't want every review of the tour turning into a paragraph about my marriage. Felix considered that, then nodded. Your call. When Camille heard, she was less graceful. That monitor is better than what you'll rent. Yes. You designed the crossover. Yes. You trust it. Yes. So your solution to people being stupid is to use worse equipment? My solution is to make one clean line. Her eyes narrowed. I did not give you that gear. I know. You earned access to it. I know that too. Then why are you punishing yourself? I'm not. I stepped closer to her desk. I'm choosing one thing I don't have to explain while the marriage is new and the tour is already complicated. Camille stood. You cannot make your life smaller every time someone might misunderstand us. That stopped me. Because it was exactly what she had done. For 14 months. She knew it too. Her expression changed. Fine, she said. Fine? I hate your decision. Very supportive. I am supporting your right to make a bad one. I smiled. That almost made her smile back. Then I saw the itinerary open on her desk. 14 cities. Dates highlighted. Travel times noted. I stared. Camille slowly closed the laptop. What was that? Nothing. You mapped the tour. I looked at it. You color-coded it. I own highlighters. How many shows were you planning to attend? Her mouth tightened. Potentially 4. No. The word came out before she could start negotiating. Camille's eyes flashed. I have a plane. You have access to a corporate plane. A distinction without practical value. It has enormous practical value. You are not going to chase the bus with a corporate aircraft because you're afraid I'll disappear. I did not say chase. Camille. She walked to the window. For a few seconds, the only sound was a muted snare drum from the testing floor below. I don't know what normal looks like here, she said. That took the fight out of me. Neither do I. If I don't come, I'm repeating the old fear. If you come to every city, you're letting the fear drive. She turned. What do you want? One show. Her expression sharpened. Which one? Opening night. The Ryman. Yes. Her fingers started tapping. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come because you want to see me play, I said. Not because you need to make sure I come home afterward. Camille looked down at her wedding band. Then nodded. One show. I believed her. That frightened her more than suspicion ever could. 3 nights before the tour, I woke at 2 in the morning convinced I had made a mistake. Not the tour. The marriage. The thought arrived ugly and complete. I sat on the edge of my bed while Camille slept beside me and tried to separate fear from memory. I remembered more now. Arguments. A breakfast at her condo when she told me she had never pictured marriage because marriage felt like another promise people made before leaving anyway. The first time I told her I loved her and she responded by asking whether I had checked the solder temperature on a prototype because apparently emotional panic and technical troubleshooting occupied the same part of her brain. I remembered wanting her. I remembered being furious with her. I remembered the contradiction of loving someone whose instinct was to close her hand around uncertainty until it stopped moving. And I remembered waking in a hospital and skipping every unresolved step between girlfriend and wife. Camille stirred. You're awake. Yeah. She pushed herself up. What hurts? Nothing physical. That woke her fully. I stood and walked to the kitchen because I needed space that did not contain our wedding rings, her pillow, and 14 months of evidence that loving someone did not guarantee timing. Camille followed. I poured water. Then said, what if Tuesday was wrong? She stopped near the counter. I hated the expression on her face so much I almost took the sentence back. I didn't. What if I only married you because my brain filled a missing space with the ending I wanted? Camille leaned one hand against the counter. And now? Now I remember why we were fighting. That does not answer me. No. She waited. I had promised myself that marriage would not turn honesty into cruelty by avoidance. I don't want to wake up 6 months from now and resent you because we made the biggest decision of our lives while 5 weeks of mine were missing. Camille went very still. Then she nodded. All right. I frowned. That's it? No. She walked past me and disappeared down the hall. When she returned, she was holding a key. Not a house key. Small. Old. Worn brass. I knew it. Her father's music room key. Camille kept one room in her condo locked. I had been inside twice. On the wall hung Patrick Rourke's red 1967 hollow body guitar, the instrument he had toured with for nearly 20 years. Camille had never allowed anyone to play it. Not me. Not musicians who visited. Not even a repair tech without standing in the room herself. Get dressed, she said. 20 minutes later, we were at her condo. Camille unlocked the music room. The guitar waited behind glass. She opened the case. Even before she lifted it out, I could see her hands shaking. Camille. My father took this every time he left. You don't have to. I know. She removed the guitar and set it carefully in its old road case. Faded venue stickers covered the lid. Memphis. Atlanta. Birmingham. Jackson. Every city she had learned to hate because they were names on postcards from a man who wasn't home. She closed the latches. Then slid the case toward me. Take it on tour. I stared at her. No. Her eyes flashed. You don't get to reject every difficult thing I offer. This isn't difficult. This is cruel to you. No. Her hand remained on the case. What was cruel was spending 19 years pretending an instrument made someone leave. My throat tightened. Camille. My father chose badly. The guitar didn't. The road didn't. Music didn't. She looked at me. And you are not him. The words were quiet. That made them enormous. I touched the case but didn't take it yet. Why now? Because you're asking whether Tuesday was wrong. Yes. I don't know. That answer hit me harder than any reassurance could have. Camille continued. I wanted you enough to marry you while you were still trying to put your memory back together. Maybe that was selfish. Maybe it was brave. Probably both. Her eyes shone, but she did not look away. If you decide after this tour that you would not have chosen me with everything remembered, tell me. I will survive hearing it. My chest hurt. You don't believe that. No. A tiny, broken smile touched her mouth. But I believe you have the right to say it. There it was. Camille's hands finally left the guitar case. No schedule. No route control. No corporate plane waiting to collect me. No guarantee. She had spent her adult life trying to make departure impossible. Now she was putting the object she associated most with being left into my hands. I lifted the case. It was heavier than I expected. Opening night, I said. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What? You promised one show. Yes. Sit where I can see you. That sounds inefficient for performing. Camille. I'll be there. I carried the red guitar out of the room. She locked the door behind us. For once, it was empty. The Ryman smelled like old wood, hot cables, dust, and every stupid dream I had ever tried to outgrow. Soundcheck started at 3. By 4, my shoulder hurt. By 5, Jesse had decided one amplifier was possessed. By 6, I had forgotten how to eat. At 7:45, I stood behind the curtain with Patrick Rourke's red guitar strapped across my chest. The house was full. I knew Camille was somewhere out there. I did not look for her yet. If I found her too early, I was afraid the whole night would become about whether she stayed in her seat. Wes gathered us before stage call. No speeches, he said. No reunion nonsense. No crying until after encore. Jesse pointed at me. He got married after a concussion. Exactly. We've hit our drama quota. I laughed. Then the house lights dropped. The roar came up. We walked out. The first song nearly flattened me. Not because I forgot it. Because I remembered all of it. The clubs. The vans. Cheap motel rooms. The year I quit. The morning Jesse called about this tour. The first time I said no. Then another memory arrived between songs. Camille's condo. 3 weeks before the crash. I was sitting at her kitchen counter while she made tea. I said yes. I told her. She stopped. To what? The tour. Her face went white. I had forgotten that moment until then. Camille did not yell. She asked one question. When were you going to tell me? I'm telling you. You approved leave 20 days ago. I had looked away. That was the wound. Not the road. I had hidden the decision because I was afraid of her fear, then blamed her for making me hide. The next memory came with brutal clarity. Camille standing across from me. You keep asking me to trust that you will come back while you refuse to trust me with the fact that you are going. I had no answer. She was right. I remembered our fight differently now. Not Ice Queen versus musician. Not controlling CEO versus independent man. Two people trying to manage each other's fear instead of telling the truth early enough. The third song ended. I finally looked toward the house. Second balcony. Aisle seat. Camille. She wore black. Of course she did. Her hands were locked together in her lap. Even from the stage I could see one thumb tapping against the other. 1, 2, 3, 4. She had come. She had stayed. I turned back toward Jesse. Southbound. His eyebrows rose. That song wasn't on the opening set. Then he grinned. He changed guitars. Wes looked at me. You sure? Yes. We started. The room quieted after the first verse. The song wasn't polished enough to hide inside. Good. Neither were we. By the final chorus, I knew exactly why I had written it. Not about leaving. About refusing to turn coming home into proof that leaving had been wrong. When the last chord faded, I stood under the lights with Camille's father's guitar in my hands. I did not give a speech about marriage. I didn't tell 1,200 strangers our private life. I only said, this guitar belonged to a man who spent a lot of years on roads like the one we're starting tomorrow. Somebody I loved trusted me enough to let it travel again. My eyes found Camille's seat. She wasn't tapping anymore. This one's getting home. Then we played the next song. After the encore, I found Camille backstage near an old brick wall covered in decades of signatures. She looked furious. That usually meant she was trying not to cry. You changed the set. Yes. You played his guitar. You told me to. You talked about it. Without using your name. I noticed. I stepped closer. For a second, the hallway noise disappeared behind the blood still rushing in my ears. I remember telling you about the tour. Camille's expression shifted. All of it? Enough. Her shoulders tightened. I told her what had come back. The kitchen. The leave form. The fact that I had waited to tell her because I was afraid of how afraid she would be. I blamed you for making me feel trapped, I said. But I was hiding the door. Camille looked down. I still would have wanted you to stay. I know. I still do. I know that too. The bus left at 9 the next morning. 6 weeks. 14 cities. No guaranteed version of us waiting at the end. I took her hand. Tuesday wasn't how I would have planned it. Her face went still. I smiled. That's probably good. My plans apparently need work. Cole. I remember enough now to know I was coming to you that night because I wanted us in the open. She searched my face. And the marriage? I looked at the plain band on my hand. Then at the woman who had taken me to a clerk's office because I called her wife before I remembered how complicated loving her had become. I wouldn't have married you that Tuesday. The herd arrived immediately. I tightened my grip before she could pull away. I would have made you wait until Wednesday. Camille stared at me. Then, against all dignity, she laughed. Actually laughed. I kissed her before she could recover. This time, when I called her wife, I remembered exactly why the word had once scared both of us. And I chose it anyway. At 8:30 the next morning, the Paper Saints bus waited behind the rehearsal building with its engine running. Jesse was loading cases. Wes was arguing about coffee. Someone had already misplaced a charger, which felt reassuringly familiar. Camille parked across the lot and got out carrying nothing. No emergency bag. No printed itinerary. No alternate route. No folder containing 14 hotel confirmations she had secretly improved. Just Camille. I set Patrick Rourke's guitar case beside my suitcase. Her eyes went to it first. You have enough strings? Yes. Humidity packs? Yes. Insurance? Yes. A tracker? I stared at her. Her expression remained perfectly serious. No tracker. I asked. That is not the same as behaving. I am behaving extremely well. I laughed. We stood beside the bus while everybody around us pretended not to watch the famously cold CEO of Copperline Audio say goodbye to the husband she had acquired 4 days after his car met a divider. You know, I said, most newlyweds do something easier. I have heard rumors. Beach. Hotel. Matching towels. I hate matching towels. That doesn't surprise me. Camille looked toward the bus. Her hand found mine. For 1 second, I felt the old tension return through her fingers. The road. Her father. The last backstage goodbye. All of it was still there. Trust had not erased fear. It had simply stopped giving fear executive authority. I don't know what 6 weeks does to us, she said. Neither do I. I dislike that answer. I know. She looked at me, then nodded. I'm trying. The same words from the kitchen before the crash. This time I remembered them. That mattered. I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. I'm going to miss you. You should. That sounded threatening. It was intended to be comforting. We need to work on your range. No. Jesse yelled from the bus door. Barrett, if your marriage has a second act, write it from Louisville. Camille gave him a look that could have ended lesser bands. Jesse disappeared inside. I picked up my suitcase. Camille did not grab it. Did not grab me. She only reached for the red guitar case one last time. Her palm rested on the faded Memphis sticker. My mother blamed this thing for years, she said. And you? I blamed the road. She looked at the case, then at me. I was wrong about both. I waited. Camille's fingers left the guitar. The problem was always the person deciding whether to come home. There was nothing clever to say after that. So I kissed her. Not quickly. Not like somebody trying to make a 6-week goodbye fit into 10 seconds. When we separated, Camille touched my wedding ring with one fingertip. You called me wife before you remembered marrying me. I called you wife before I married you. Technically worse. Technically romantic. Debatable. I smiled. See you in 6 weeks, wife. Her eyes held mine. Then she stepped back. Go play. I carried the red guitar onto the bus. Through the window, I watched Camille remain in the parking lot as we pulled away. She didn't follow. She didn't call. She didn't need proof in the first mile that I was already coming back. On my lap sat the old road case of a guitar she had kept locked away for 19 years because she believed leading was the part that broke people. My wedding band caught the morning light when I rested my hand on the handle. For the first time, I remembered enough to know she had been wrong. Leading was only distance. Choosing each other was what decided where home was. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.